Chapter 9. The Fight. As Dominic Stevens came out of the hotel towards them, Eddie froze. He looked at Lynn, and her face said the same. Before they could make an excuse to leave, Dominic was already on the cafe terrace. His hair was grey and combed back, and he was wearing white trousers, grey golf shoes, and a green polo shirt, which was too tight for his large stomach. It was definitely Dominic. The same hard face, but now with a dark tan, though his chin and cheeks were fuller than the last time Eddie had seen him. He looked older and different. "Hello, everyone. New friends, I see," he said, putting out his hand. In a reflex action, Eddie noticed his hand go out to shake Dominic's. He instantly felt he had betrayed himself. Dominic's handshake had not changed. His palm at an angle, the fingers locked tight, difficult to grip. "Do not enter," it said. Again, automatically, Eddie lifted his sunglasses to be polite, but Dominic kept his on. Eddie waited for the moment when Dominic would recognize him, but he did not. This cannot be true, he thought. Is this really Dominic? After all this time, am I shaking hands with him and he does not know me? He looked at Lynn, who was shaking his hand too. Eddie could see that she was not comfortable either. "Nice to meet you," she said, putting on her best smile. "How was the tennis?" Dominic asked, leaning on the back of Jen's chair. "Cancelled," she said. "Then I met Lynn and we've been working hard on cocktails since we got here." "Ah, it's a hard life," he said. Yes, thought Eddie, it can be very hard, and some people make it harder. His head was quickly filling up with flashes of memory, angry words and images. "So what are you guys going to do?" asked Dominic. We've got to get back to the ship," said Eddie. "I thought you were staying for the free lunch," said Jen. "Ah, there's no such thing as a free lunch, eh, Eddie?" Eddie wasn't sure if Dominic had recognized him. Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe he was unsure and was playing for time. He never showed much emotion, and behind the dark glasses he looked almost robotic. "I don't really know," said Eddie. He was still trying to recover from the shock of Dominic standing there in front of him after so long. "Sure, I've been in business 25 years and I can tell you no lunch is free." "Right," said Eddie. "Right, well, nice to meet you both." "Come on," said Jen, "stay for lunch." "No, really, I've had too much sun, I think," said Eddie. "Well, we can sit in the shade," said Jen. "No, I mean I don't feel too well," Eddie said. Said Dominic, finally lifting up his glasses and having a good look at Eddie's face. "Your nose is burnt, but you do look quite pale otherwise. You look like you've seen a ghost." Eddie looked into Dominic's eyes. He did not see any signs of recognition. He looked away. "Right. Yes, anyway, Lynn?" he said. "Yes," she said, standing up. "I'm coming." "Well, maybe we could meet for a drink after I finish tonight," asked Jen. "She's a great singer, isn't she?" said Dominic. "Yes," said Eddie. "Wonderful," said Lynn. "I'm off at about 11, so I'll come over to the bar and we can meet you both then." "We'll see how Ed feels," said Lynn. "Sure. Well, tomorrow then. Or breakfast." Dominic was laughing. "We're stuck together on the ship for the next 2 weeks, so there's no getting away, is there?" Eddie had never imagined Dominic on holiday. He only remembered that Dominic always came back from holidays complaining about the children. "Ah, it's good to be back in the office," he used to say, away from the kids. Eddie felt sorry for Dominic's family whenever he heard him say that. What would his kids say if they heard him say that? Eddie had once asked Clive. Why did he have kids or a family at all if he preferred to be in an office? Because these guys like to be the center of the universe, and kids and partners take that away from them. Besides, family life and kids are all about showing emotion, and they find it too scary. That's why they hide behind desks and power. Can you imagine Dominic or Neil trying to be with their kids? They don't know how. They probably didn't know how to be with kids when they were kids. "That's so sad," Eddie had said. "They are sad." They've missed the best things in life and think money and status are enough. But they are so superior in their own minds that they don't know it. So they're actually happy? Ignorance is happiness? Maybe. I'm not so sure. How often do you see these guys relax, laugh, or even smile? True. Well, there's your answer. Eddie? Lynn's voice suddenly brought Eddie back to reality. Eddie, are you coming? Yeah, sorry, he said. See you guys later. Bye, said Jen and Dominic together. Eddie and Lynn walked back through the hotel to the taxis. As they went back to the port and the ship, Lynn spoke first. Well? He looks older. He's still got that arrogant look, and he's put on a lot of weight. Eddie glanced out of the window. Are they married, do you think? What happened to his wife? Don't know, said Eddie. I hope she left him, for her sake. I wonder what Jen is doing with a man like him then. Goodness knows, he's old enough to be her father. The taxi moved along the harbour and past the yachts in the marina. Eddie was shaking his head in disbelief. I don't believe it, Lynn, he said. Can you believe it? No, but at least he doesn't remember you, she said, looking at him. Eddie kept staring out of the window. Do you think not? He said. Oh, come on, it's over 16 years, Ed. If he had remembered you, he would have said something, don't you think? Well, not necessarily. You never know with him. I never knew with him. He's a snake. A fat snake now, of course, but still a snake. Maybe he's changed, said Lynn, hopefully. I doubt it. The taxi slowed down and stopped near the gangway for the Parvina. They paid the driver and got out. It doesn't matter if he's an angel now. I'll never forgive him. The three things I hate most in the world are arrogance, bullying, and betrayal. He's guilty of all three. Well, let's hope he doesn't remember you. We don't have to see them anyway. He's with the singer of the ship's band, Lynn. We'll see him every night. Lynn walked in silence onto the ship and into the reception deck. What could she say? That night, Eddie and Lynn had dinner in the main dining room, which was full, as it was every night. As the sun went down and the room got darker, Eddie found it harder to see if Dominic was in the room or not. Throughout dinner, he had expected him to turn up, but he was not there. As they finished dessert and drank their coffee, however, Dominic appeared and took a seat at the bar to watch Jen. There he is, said Eddie. Oh yes. Well, maybe we could go back to the cabin or the casino. No, Lynn. We're not letting him push us around again. But he'll soon see us and come over. I doubt it. He was always antisocial. Maybe he's changed. You keep saying that. People like him never change. Eddie sipped his coffee and said, I think I need to know for sure if he remembers me. I'd feel a lot happier. But why, Ed? What good will that do? She asked. I can't explain. Eddie, please, look, he's leaving anyway. He's not going to bother us. But Eddie had already got up from the table and was walking over to the bar and the exit to follow him. He followed Dominic down the corridor and past the Starlight Lounge, where people were playing cards and reading. He followed him through the door, out onto the side deck, and to the stern of the ship. It was dark, and Eddie thought he had lost him, but then he smelled the unmistakable cigar smoke, and he saw him. The earlier breeze had been replaced by a strong wind, and the sea was quite rough. He noticed Dominic in a small area, alone, sheltered from the wind, leaning onto the rail and looking out to sea. Hello, said Eddie, walking up to him. Oh, hello there. Getting some fresh air? I suppose so. Me too, said Dominic. Feeling better? He asked. Yes, thanks. They both looked out to sea together for a long minute. Eddie broke the silence. You don't remember me, do you? He asked, looking at Dominic. Yes, I just asked if you were feeling better. We met at the hotel today. Your wife's tennis was cancelled. No, not here. Back home, at work. What do you mean? Asked Dominic, looking at Eddie. Where? Eddie knew Dominic had been in many companies, creeping his way in, then getting thrown out. Dominic called them redundancies. Others knew better. Fentons. Dominic looked at him and then looked harder, using the light coming from the spotlight on the wall. "What's your surname?" he asked. "Monroe." Dominic appeared to be trying to remember. "I was in sales. There was the big project at Zaria in Moscow." "Ah," said Dominic. "Eddie Monroe. Yes." He smoked his cigar some more, buying time. "When was that?" he asked finally. 16 years ago. "Wow, good memory," said Dominic. "Not really," said Eddie. "You fired me, and it's not something one forgets." "Did I?" And Dominic actually laughed. Over the years, Eddie had imagined meeting him again and confronting him. He had never imagined the man laughing. "You did, yes. You found a way to blame me for a budget loss of £25,000. "That's a long time ago. I honestly can't remember," said Dominic, still smoking, looking back at the sea. Eddie was staring at him. His mouth was dry. He was trembling. "Well, I remember." "Good for you," said Dominic, and now his tone was changing. Less interested, colder. "Actually, I remember you were an incompetent bully. You made my life miserable." Dominic turned around and looked at Eddie. "Is that so?" It was too dark to see if he was angry or not. Eddie felt that the situation was getting out of control, but there was no turning back. The words were coming out on their own. "I was very successful at Fenton's," said Dominic firmly. "And one reason was probably because I was able to get rid of useless rubbish like you." "They fired you from there eventually, I heard. Why was that?" Dominic started walking away. "An interesting reunion, my friend, but it's late and I'm bored with this conversation. I suggest you leave the past in the past and move on." Eddie grabbed his arm. He felt Dominic's body stiffen. "Get your hands off me," Dominic said, putting his cigar in his mouth to free his hand. "I moved on, Dominic. I moved on after you took away my job, my money, my peace of mind, and almost my wife." Eddie was angry now. The words were not coming out right anymore. "I've seen your wife, Eddie," Dominic said, laughing. "I can tell you that you still need to move on." "What does that mean?" This time, Eddie pushed him against the rail of the ship and hit the cigar out of Dominic's mouth. The light was shining on Dominic's face, and Eddie saw a mixture of surprise and anger. "Hey, what is your problem?" he shouted. But they were out on deck in the wind and darkness, and it was like a whisper. Dominic pushed back against the rail, but Eddie would not let him move. You are my problem," Eddie shouted. He had no idea what he was doing anymore. He was scared and angrier than he had been for a long time. "Move away, Eddie. This is unacceptable." "Unacceptable? Unacceptable? Oh, really? So after all these years you know what is acceptable and unacceptable. What you and Neil Skinner did to me was unacceptable. The way you patronized and intimidated me was unacceptable. You cheated and lied. You were so smug, so superior. I was the boss. I made tough decisions. You were a casualty. It happens in business. Sink or swim, my friend. Get over it." Without thinking, Eddie brought his knee hard and fast up into Dominic's groin. Dominic shouted out in shock and blinding pain, but was able to push his hand hard into Eddie's face. Eddie lost his balance for a moment, giving Dominic time to stand up straight. Dominic pushed Eddie in the chest, but Eddie did not feel it. He was too busy getting his hands around Dominic's neck. He squeezed, and Dominic tried to get himself free, but he could not. Eddie's hands were locked around Dominic's throat. He dug in his nails to be sure. He pressed his thumbs. Dominic was trying to speak, but he couldn't. He choked out some words, but Eddie could make no sense of them. "Just shut up! Shut up! You stupid, arrogant man!" Eddie growled at him. Eddie could finally see fear in Dominic's face, which had gone pale, and his eyes stared back at him. Eddie could see he was going to pass out, so he loosened his grip. "What am I doing?" he thought. This is madness. But the moment he let go, pain suddenly shot into Eddie's ear as Dominic threw a punch to the right side of Eddie's head and then to his right side into his ribs. Eddie was wild and angry once more, this time pushing Dominic back onto the ship's rail. Hard against the rail, fast against the rail. Dominic shouting in pain once more. Eddie punching and punching. Okay, enough, stop, pleaded Dominic, his arms up in defense. Eddie stopped. He loosened his grip again and waited for a reaction from Dominic, but none came. Eddie stood back and watched Dominic try to stand up against the rail. Dominic was holding his stomach and breathing heavily. He coughed a couple of times. His head was down. Eddie was out of breath himself. He hadn't been in a fight since he was 15. It felt just the same even as an adult. Tiring, frightening, and sore. That time there was a crowd watching. This time there was no one. Don't come near me or speak to me again. Ever. Do you hear me? Dominic was still trying to get his breath. Either he could not speak or he did not want to, but he said nothing. Eddie took one last look at him and backed away until he was at a safe distance. Then he left the deck and went back inside. That was the last time anyone ever saw